Hello, and welcome to Life and Other Indoor Sports with Coach K. Join me for today's episode where we talk about how self-care is not selfish, it's self-full. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome to Life and Other Indoor Sports. I am Coach K, also known as Cara Ashburn. I teach women how to adopt a healthier lifestyle and lose weight by faith. And I'm so grateful to have my first guest on this episode, Miss Tanya Carter. And she runs a movement called Miss Tanya Speaks. And it might not be a movement yet, but to me it is. And I was pleased to meet her through a personal development organization that I joined called Breathe University, run by Eric Thomas, the greatest motivational speaker that I've ever met. And we really saw a kindred spirit there. And so I'm so grateful to have her on tonight's episode, where we will be talking about relationships and self-care, such an important topic among women. And so, Tanya, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, thank you first for having me on your show and also being the first guest.
Yes.
So just a little bit about me. I am 37 years old. I'm a mother of two. I have a 15 and a 10-year-old boy and girl. I'm an IT major. That's my investment job. But my passion and my purpose is to help divorced single mothers break up with those things that are not allowing them to get to their breakthroughs. And so I've been divorced for about close to 8 years now. Been stuck in a rut for a while, using that as my way of not moving forward like I could have been. And so, just now following my purpose and my passion. I'm born and raised in Atlanta. So, and I'm still here. I moved for like a few years when I was married, but I'm here now. And that's what I'm working on, just creating that movement of women, becoming their best selves unapologetically.
So you were 29 then when I just did some quick math. I'm typically not really that good at math, but I was calculating while you were talking. You were 29 then when you divorced. How old were you when you got married?
I was 22.
Oh, so you were a baby.
Yeah, I was a baby, very much so. Now you couldn't tell me that,
Right, of
because I
course
was
not.
grown. Girl, I can do what I want to do. Yeah, that's me. Whatever, But really and truly, I still didn't know who I was. I think I'm really starting to become my own person. I just started that journey, truthfully, about 3 years ago.
Wow. So, what others may not know, or I know some who listen will know, but what most people who listen to this episode won't know is that you presented to my group. I run a coaching program for women, and you presented to my group on self-care. And I mean, we ran over time. We had a phenomenal discussion. And, as you and I were talking earlier, first of all, I think our purpose, individually, is being revealed to us more and more, because there are so many women out there who are completely neglecting just taking care of themselves. And one of the things that I shared with the women in my group is that, we're biologically wired to take care of other people. Even in the animal kingdom, you see it. You put yourself last, you make sure everyone else has what they need. And some of us do it because we just dying on the cross every day to do for everybody else and can't say no. And for some of us, it's more so about, control, where we just don't think anybody can do it as well as we can. But regardless of what the root reason is, we are still suffering from not just taking care of ourselves in some of the most basic ways.
Right. I think when we think of the word self-care, we feel like it involves a lot of money and even a lot of time, when it really isn't about that. It's about just making yourself the priority. So even if you put in 10 or 15 minutes a day, and see, this is the thing, it's daily dosage. It's not just this one thing you do a week. It has to be something done every day. So when you make it every day, you can break it up in bite-sized pieces. I mean, think about it. This is why many people are so excited when they go on a vacation, because they don't think about anything at home, because they know when they are at home, they have to do so much and be available to so many people. So when you think vacation, you leave everything home. And so we enjoy those few days of a vacation, and then we kind of slumber back into this, you know, getting through the day mindset, being
Mm-hmm.
exhausted. And so we feel like the only time we have to pour into our cup every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, this is it's a lifestyle.
Right.
Intentionally incorporate. So even if it's 10 minutes, you make that 10 minutes matter, and you do it every single day. When you find a way to do it every single day, then you can show up and be your best self, and you make it non-negotiable.
Mm.
But self-care is huge, and is again, it has nothing to do with money. So if you just want to go take a walk, read a book, write, I mean, just go back to the basics. And many of us think it has to be so extra, and it
Right.
doesn't. It can be the most simplest things. I intentionally practice self-care now because my health took a toll on me, and it
Mm.
took for that to happen for me to really incorporate my self-care.
So tell us a little bit about that, because I think for those of us who've reached this place where you and I are, I'm a self-care queen. I can unpack that a little bit later. I don't know if it'll help somebody. It's not easy for as everybody. It's not as easy for everyone else to do it as it is for me. But I do think that there's something that happens that causes us to finally say that is it. It's time for me to do this for me. And what was that for you?
Well, when I got my divorce back in 2010, I didn't realize how much of an emotional wreck I was, because I was in denial. I didn't want to
Mm,
admit my true feelings, because being a strong Black woman is like
mm,
no feelings.
yeah.
And that's really humanly impossible. No one's wired that way, no matter how much we try to pretend to be. And what I end up doing is that I developed even more toxic relationships, and then a lifestyle that really wasn't a quote unquote healthy lifestyle. So after my divorce, I lost 5 jobs in 4 years. And
Wow, wow,
so
wow.
being a single mother, losing jobs, trying to be strong. And then when people tell you you're strong, you'll be all right. It was kind of like that was it. Like, I guess I'll be all right. Not really giving myself the permission to have an outlet and say, you know what, I'm really not okay, and I need to deal with this. And
Mm-hmm.
so, just repeating a lot of lessons that I never learned. And so lessons it'll keep repeating until you just get it. And so back in 2012, I lost my fifth job. My grandmother was sick. My
Mm,
cousin had stomach cancer. He was dying. And I
mm,
had a friend who I really cared about a lot that we just didn't end on good terms. And I believe that that was my breaking point. So mind you, it wasn't just that, it was the repeated like cycle of like doing the same thing. But I think my breaking point hit 2012. And so I started having anxiety attacks. I used to wake up in the middle of the night, heart beating really fast. And I caught one at my daughter's school. And I I started having some digestive problems. And at the
mm,
time I didn't know that's what it was. I woke up just not feeling right, but I thought it was a little bug that'll pass, but it never passed.
mm,
And it started making me extremely tired. I started having a lot of migraines. I started having a lot of joint pain. I started, having shortness of breath. I started having like a whole lot of different symptoms with my body. And I knew something wasn't right. And so I went to the gastro doctor. They kind of giving me the runaround, and I don't really like runarounds. I don't just not just tell me what's up. And so I ended up going to a holistic doctor, and I got diagnosed with intestinal permeability, which basically means the lining of my stomach has caused a lot of damage due to stress,
mm,
and because of that, I have to be very cautious of what I eat. because the food particles will get into your bloodstream, and that's what was causing me to have all the problems. And at the time, I was like,
Wow.
well, what could have caused this? And he said, probably all the stress you had. Like, and I think we sleep on stress thinking that it's
Yes.
be stress. And stress really is a silent killer. I mean, it can come in many different forms. Mine came in the form of my digestive system. And so, of course, eating a healthy diet, which is crazy because I was a workout fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
I was over exercising because that was my outlet, but that was just as bad as not exercising at all because I still wasn't dealing with things that I kept sweeping under the rug. See, emotional problems are the worst, and
Mm-hmm.
we suppress them all the time, and we don't allow ourselves to heal. Like, it's no different than a physical injury. You get a physical injury, you have to go through physical therapy, meds. You're going through a process to heal. You have to go through a process with your emotional care. And because I never dealt with that, I believe that my body took a toll and said, you know, I can't bear no more. And it just shut down. And that's scary because it affected me from head to toe. You
Yeah.
know, it really does. So, um,
And I don't think that people really, we just said it, you just said it, but I really still feel like even though people will say, they have to watch their stress because of their blood pressure or whatever, I don't think that they really internalize how big it is to manage your stress. Because I can tell you that, now I'm 45 and when you hit your 40s, especially those first couple years, now you'll probably be ahead because you've already done a lot of work. But I know so many broken women in their 40s who have not done any level of self work yet or very little, and they start hitting hormone changes. And I just felt for me like there was this dark cloud following me around all day. I mean, I was so down with no real reason. My moods were all over the place. And it does affect your health, period. And it does not matter how much you work out or how much salad you eat. Like, none of that matters if your life is so stressed that your body is building up, to react to the stress, trying to protect you, but ends up overdoing it, right? Because a lot of times the stress is preventable, it's avoidable. We're holding on to stuff we need to let go of. We don't want to go through the pain of doing the work because what you're describing, your process, and I know, we didn't unpack that a lot when we were on the group call, but there's a lot of pain that goes along with looking yourself in the mirror and saying, this is who I am. And it's not all pretty and it's not all okay. And I don't want to go out like this. You know what I'm saying? Does that
absolutely.
make sense?
Oh, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. I think what we have to realize, we have to understand what self care is and what self care is not. And so I believe that when we think of the word self care, we think it's considered selfish when it's self full.
So full.
So, and it's so true. Like, I was pouring from an empty cup.
Mm,
I was not filling my own cup. It
mm,
might have looked like it because, people don't understand. Facebook just gives you highlights of people's life.
mm.
That's it. So we get confused thinking, well, you look like you got a lot going on. That's just a picture out of the
Yeah,
whole.
yeah.
So you really don't know what truly goes on with a person. And so when I started reading up on self-care and just really saying, you know what, I really have to make this a priority in my life, I just made it non-negotiable. I
Yeah.
realized that it was, this is why I tell people self-care is identifying your own needs. So it's not wants. Self-care is a need. So when we identify the needs, we have to meet those needs. It's no different than your lifestyle. You need a home, you need water. You know what I'm saying? You want a Lexus, but you don't need one. And I mean seriously, like, we have to know.
It's the equivalent of water, though. To me, self-care is the equivalent of going all day without taking a single drink of anything. And when you said empty cup, it made me think of when you're drinking a cup of coffee and you get down to the bottom and it's just granules. Like, nobody wants that. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Nobody wants that.
It doesn't taste good anymore. It's cold. Like, there's nothing good coming out of the bottom of that cup.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. And once we understand that, this is a lifestyle and we have to be unapologetic about it, then we'll be fine. See, the thing is, we want other people to care for us on a level that we should care about ourselves. Like, why they just don't
Yeah.
care? Because you don't.
Hmm. You
You
don't
have
care, and they can see
right.
it.
You have to care.
It's just like my I struggle to keep my car clean, just as an example. And but if I already have it trashy and somebody else gets in, oh Lord, this is a great analogy. Your car is trashy and I get in with my trash. Why would I'm unbothered to get out and leave my trash in there because it was already a bunch of trash when I got in here. And how many of us have the same thing in in our personal lives? There's all this trash, there's all this baggage, all this stuff that's not dealt with, and then you meet someone with dating or even female relationship or friendship that occurs, and they see that it's already trashy, so they don't care. You don't care, they don't care. They don't take the shoes off. They don't make sure that they're clean when they come in. Like attracts like, and you go from there. And people leave their trash in your life.
Right. And it's up to you to clean it up. And so, and that's the thing. Like, self-care is not, some people like, well, I'm going to get a manicure, and that's great. Okay. But it's not always just that. It's that emotional baggage. For me, it was my
Yeah.
emotional and my mental baggage that I carry, and my spirituality. Like, I didn't make my spiritual life my priority. It was important, but it wasn't important enough to make it a priority. Like, I thought I was making it a priority because I believed in God, but I had to actively like build that relationship in order to have certain things fall in line. And that's not putting my spiritual beliefs on nobody. It's just that's me. And so we have to realize what's important to us and not just say it is, but make it intentional. So if you're saying your self-care is important, you need to make the self-care important. I had a friend who, she's been sick for a few weeks because she was like, I feel lazy when I'm not doing anything. And see, this is the stuff that we do as women. We feel like we're not any good when we're not doing stuff. But I said, you need to recharge and refuel. This is why you've probably been sick as long as you have, because you haven't taken the time to take care of you. And so we shut down. And when we shut down so horrible. And see, when we start doing
Mm-hmm.
this every day, we probably won't be getting all these flus and stuff that people get. Like, that's what people
Mm-hmm.
don't understand. Self-care is huge. And I'm gonna knock
Mm-hmm.
on wood, but I ain't been sick. And I hope I don't. But I haven't been sick at all, because I'm telling you, this is my life. This is my
Yeah.
lifestyle. I mean, really, like, if and I tell people this all the time, you have to recharge. When your phone is dead and it ain't got no juice, you got to plug that thing up, because you're like, girl, I got to get a charge. You care. That's how you should have your self-care about you. If we carried that on our sleeve like we do our chargers for our phones, we wouldn't have no problem.
Mm-hmm. I love how when you did the presentation for my group, you showed that picture with the battery plugged in.
Right.
Like if we could be that literal with it and say, I need to plug my battery in. I need a recharge. And we think the biggest thing I think that I want everybody to get from this is that people will share, on social media, they need a vacation so bad, but you can't always wait that long. Like I haven't been on a real vacation since 2015. So it's been over 2 years, but I vacation in my soul every day. Like literally, I have very specific things I do to manage my stress, to keep from arguing with people. Certain things I don't watch if I feel like it's shifting my spirit somewhere I don't want it to go. But it did not happen overnight. When you first make a shift in your spirit, it is really challenging because you're so used to behaving and responding in a certain kind of way. And so for me, the hardest part was probably that first year or so of just not reacting to everything, and it transitioned into at some point to learning how to control my words more, and if something was negative, just not necessarily saying it every time, and repeating to myself, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, think on these things, Philippians 4:8, and just reminding myself that I can be different because I've been negative my whole life. Like I'm naturally a pessimist. The glass is never half full. It's always half empty, and nobody's coming to fill it up. It's on me. I got to go do it. On and on and on. And at some point, I just realized this is not serving me anymore. And the other key thing I want to bring out uh, for especially for married women is that we look to our partner to fill that cup up. And I think that in a in a wonderful relationship it does happen. However, we should also be filling our own cup and not be resentful about what our spouse is or isn't doing. But you know best how to fill your own cup. And honestly, what I learned in my marriage, Tanya, is that when I stopped begging him to do stuff and complaining about what he was and wasn't doing and started just making myself happy every day, what happened was, or what had happened, as they say,
Mm-hmm.
was he started feeling some kind of way
Mm-hmm.
that I was doing all this stuff for myself, and that I was, as a matter of fact, I became so happy for making myself happy. He started going through my stuff, girl. He said something must be going on. Because I made myself happy. I said, you always wanted to go and do this, go do it. You feel like going to do this, go do that. I didn't have to wait on someone else to go and fulfill these things. And now he tries harder, to do certain things for me because he knows she's going to get it done anyway, but he wasn't reaping as many benefits as he could have been had he participated in it. So we got to own it. We got to own our own happiness. We have to create boundaries in our lives. I think we need to go there a little bit and talk about that, but create boundaries in our lives to really protect that self-care, and then just not overthink it. Any little thing. For me, exercise is now a part of my self-care, but to your point, that's not even the main thing, right? Because some people do exercise every day and they're still neglecting themselves in other ways. So what I want to get back to, you unpacking a little bit of what you were saying, but I want to share in terms of being able to narrow that focus. That one of the things I'm doing with my group right now is I've asked them to pick, if you think of all the big buckets in your life, pick the biggest area where you have a blockage. For some people, it's boundaries. For some people, it is exercise. They're just not doing it. For other people, they're not sleeping well. Some people know that they're not eating well, and just pick one thing out of that area and say, I'm going to be intentional about this for the next 7 days. So one person, for example, picked meal prep because not having her meals prepped is so stressful for her. Now, meal prep was never stressful for me. I'll just make it work. But it's different for each person. And then just picking one little thing in there that you know is going to reduce your stress and put you in a calmer state of mind every single day. And just with that little bit of intentionality, even before we started the challenge, they were already like breathing a sigh of relief. Like, I'm so glad we're doing this. That's what everybody kept saying. And I thought, like I said to you when we talked earlier, we've struck a chord here. Women are starving
Right.
themselves.
Absolutely. And I did a call about a couple of weeks ago about, everyone's like, how do I find balance? And I think that word is like overly used because when I define balance, we feel like we can do everything. But when you create boundaries, you can do anything, but you understand that you can't do everything. And boundaries
Mm-hmm.
create a fence, it creates walls. And not to be mean, but you have to set boundaries in your life. And you do that by knowing what your priorities are. And you have to know, I mean, really, like, you have to know what they are. And everything isn't a priority. They may be important, but that does not mean that they are a priority. And so we confuse the two and we put everything under the priority list, leaving no room to make us that priority. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
do that, when you have an order, you're able to put yourself first. Like, you have to put yourself on your calendar, and you have to work around that. And so, and this is the thing, like when we did the call on Sunday, this is, and I was married before, and this was one of the things I had to go through. I had to process a lot of things. And one of the things that I processed is, what did I truly start that I knew I didn't want to finish? And that was starting the creating the environment of I can do it all. And so by me
Mm-hmm.
creating that environment, I kind of spoiled him in that way, because I allowed it, because I felt like that's what you had to do to be a quote unquote good wife and a quote unquote good mother. And I had to understand that if I ever get married again, that is something that I cannot even create again, because I'm setting that foundation. And so we have to be cautious of the foundations we set. And I know I deal with single mothers and divorced single women. And this is, we have to look at the things that we do, because sometimes we think doing everything means that I was a good woman, but sometimes it kind of makes you a woman who becomes exhausted and tired. You have to set boundaries, and you set them up front. Like, I love you, but I'm not going to do it all. We're a team. We're together. We're going to create this lifestyle together. Like, I don't want to, do more than what I can do. I don't want to be overwhelmed. And I never did that, because I made it seem like I can do it all. And so I carried that as a single mom, because I felt like I had to as a single mom, not realizing that it takes a village. Married or not, it takes a village. But I think with single mothers, we became maybe disappointed by the father of our children. And so we've created in that mind that we don't need anybody, and we're going to try to figure it out, when that leaves us tired and stressed, because we need community. This is why
Right.
God put us on this earth, to create community. And
Right.
and
Right.
and, and many of us don't get that. And there was a time where I didn't think I needed nobody, but I would love for people to ask me. So of course I was stressed out, because I wanted people to come to me, but I didn't have enough courage to ask. I would sit here and try to figure everything out for myself, because
Mm.
my motto was, if you want it done, do it yourself.
Do
That
it
was my
yourself.
motto. And I lived and died by that motto. But guess what? That motto almost killed me inside,
Right.
because I was trying to live up to that standard that I just couldn't do on my own. And so part of self-care for me was just being able to ask and receive. You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? So sometimes we be thinking self-care is just this, going to Spa-Dale. And no, sometimes you gotta, it's those little
It's
things.
pride, but that's pride too,
Right. It's
not
that
being
pride.
able to act, not being able to admit I'm really falling apart here, even though it may look great on Facebook. This is not all that great. And
Right.
I want you to give some advice to the single moms, but first, let me ask you, let's talk about boundaries, very briefly, because a lot of the women that I deal with can't get to the self-care because they have not established any boundaries
Mhm.
around them, and they are constantly running themselves dry for family, and they are that person. And that's why, as a Christian, I'll be honest with you, I've struggled at times with this concept of energy, in the way that it's used, but it's a real thing. And I feel like people can sense, because I have a friend, for example, who always attracts the neediest, strangest people. And if she listens to the podcast, she's going to be laughing. She knows who she is. She just always attracts people who are in crisis, that always need something. And she will constantly overextend herself to the point where her well runs dry on a consistent basis. Whereas me, those people don't even come for me. Like, I don't see them. I don't have any friends like that. Nobody ever asks me to borrow anything, almost to the point where I'm like, am I mean? This just doesn't happen to me. But because I think you and I are more, our personalities are more, we can put our foot down. How do we speak to the woman that just really struggles to say, no, I can't do that. I'm not available. Like, she feels like she's letting the whole universe down if she just puts her foot down for a change. What do you think, or in terms of how can she get better at that?
Well, I mean, and this is when you have to have a vision for your life. I think, and this is important, and this is about boundaries. So it's no different than when we look at companies like Chick-fil-A or Publix. They have a certain culture because of the boundaries that they set for the company.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to set boundaries too, by knowing what our vision is for our lives. And that can be for your family. And all that means your family, your career, your own personal self care, your happiness. What does that look like? And many of us need to see beyond what we see in front of us. So the vision has to be more bigger than your eyes in itself. And so now some women, have a problem with just flat out saying no. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that especially in the beginning. I mean, if that's not your thing, you know, it's I don't think it's going to come as easy. And this is where you have to practice and repetition. And so
Yeah.
when you know what your boundaries are and when you set your life accordingly, and when someone asks you to do something, and this is what I tell people for those who honestly can't say no. First, we got to stop thinking that no means negative, like it's a
Mm-hmm.
rejection. It doesn't mean that you're saying
Yes.
no, because you got to think every time you're saying yes, you're saying no to something.
Mm.
Doesn't matter what it is. So you got,
Oh,
and
repeat
so
that. Say that again. Every
when
time you say
you say
yes
yes, you
to
are
one
saying
thing,
no.
you're saying no to something else.
Right. And that is something that we have to remind ourselves of before we are so quick to say yes. And then you have to think about what you're saying yes to and what does it involve. Because, you know, for me, if I'm saying yes to someone, you know, I'm either something else I can't do. So
Yep.
like for instance, if somebody say, "Oh, Tanya, I need to talk to you." Okay, but I used to be like, "Oh, I'm available now." That's how I used to be because
Mm-hmm.
even though I have that dominant exterior, I'm still a people person. And so I could make myself available, but I had to rearrange that. And I have to think about, man, when is a good time for me? Like, make it where it works for you. Like, don't
Mm-hmm.
make it on their time. And then if you can't do it, just just let them know that you're unable to fulfill that commitment. Give it some careful consideration, you know, and you don't have to explain your choice of no. But if you feel like you have to, then that's up to you. But I feel like some people feel like they have to explain it because they don't want to feel like they're bad people or they won't like them. I mean, if somebody don't like you because you finally told them no, then that could tell you something about your relationship. So,
Yes.
and seriously, so, and you have to ask yourself these questions. Is it exhausting me? Is it stressing me out? Is it at a point where it's too overwhelming and getting in my way? Is it constantly pushing me away from my daily life? You know, so creating, you know, boundaries, you can still give and be there for people, but you don't want it to become a job that you've acquired with no pay and benefits.
Mm. Wow. Because that's what it can become.
Right.
That's what it
Because
can
you can't
become.
because you
Yeah.
can't make everyone happy.
Right.
So we kill ourselves trying. So but understand that it's okay to say no. And that means you said yes to yourself finally. So imagine when you tell someone no, you're saying yes to you. So
Mm.
remember that when you say no to something. Like, you know what? I finally said yes to myself.
And I think you can think about the specifics of what you're saying no to when you say yes to that, because it may be something as simple as you had an errand for yourself you were going to run, or you were going to take a nap, or you were going to go to bed early, but you got this phone call and so you couldn't. People live like this, and they because the thing that they're saying no to, they think is not, they think that's negotiable, or they've made that negotiable. That's the reason why they're so easily, they'll easily cast that aside and just go with what this person needs right now. And it goes back to what we said earlier. It's not selfish to say no sometimes. It's self-full. And the tip I would add to what you shared is one that I got from someone else in a session we had in the rebirth. And she said to look in the mirror and talk to yourself and practice saying no. Like, just practice it. And she said she practiced it so much that she can say no to anybody now. No, no, thank you. No, I'm sorry, I can't make it. Like, people underestimate the power of speaking something out loud to yourself, doing it on repeat a few times, and you really do begin to feel your power come back to you and realize that it's okay to say no. Now, when you first start saying no to some folks that you've been saying yes to for a long time, there may be some consequences there, right? They are used to basically shifting you around like a chess piece to suit their lives.
Right.
I know somebody, in that scenario, constantly giving a ride to a family member who will say they just want to go one place, and then next thing you know, you've made 10 more stops and your whole afternoon is messed up. But they guilt you into it. So you gotta, as a matter of fact, what I counsel people to do, Tanya, is don't make some big declaration to folks that things about to change around here. Don't do it until you're sure. You've practiced it, you've settled it in your mind, because once you start spouting off at the mouth to people and then you don't stick to it, you have no credibility whatsoever.
And people don't take you seriously. And I
They
also
don't take you
add,
seriously.
and I
Yeah.
also want to add to mothers with children. Um, you know, that's a very sensitive area because, as mothers, I know for me, I've been taught, once you have kids, it kind of stopped being about you and it's
Mm-hmm.
about your kids. And there's a boundary to that as well. And, for me, my children are older now. But I also realized over like my years, I felt like I was trying to overcompensate in different areas, especially being a single mom. So I put them in a lot of activities, and I realized that burnt me out too. And what I mean by that is that they don't have to be in 4 and 5 different things. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to like cut a lot of that out. It's okay to when they're at an age where they can be held accountable for just cleaning up their room, hold them to that. Because,
Mm-hmm.
as parents, we don't do those things, and because we feel like, well, maybe I should do it. It's just a thing of holding them accountable and teaching them responsibility. And you have to do it all and be it all, and you create a culture. And as a mom, I had to tell my kids, look, I'm not, we're a team, and you are held accountable. So on Saturdays, clean up, my son takes out the trash. And this just didn't happen. This has been going on for years. Like, you know my son, he had to grow up a lot more quicker because, he was the oldest and I was a single mom. And it was certain him do just little things, even in the 5th grade. And it just, over time, it just became a habit, because like I told him, I don't want you to grow up being someone else's problem. And I definitely don't want you to feel like that you need me to bail you out of everything. And it's just, that's the type of mother I am. I know, I've, because it can carry over in their adulthood. He has to be held accountable. And it's okay, parents, to hold your children accountable to some things around the house. It doesn't make you less of a mom. It makes you a better mom because you know how to delegate. Stop trying to be in control of everything and figuring out think you got to do everything or can't nobody do it like you. No, let it go and learn how to delegate and say, look, this is what you need to do. We are a team. We're a family, but we're a team. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because, for me, I felt like because I did so much, it made me resent my husband when I was married.
Mm.
And those are the things I had to dig more deep about if I wanted to emotionally heal, because it was so easy to say, well, you weren't doing this and you weren't doing that, but I created that monster,
Mm-hmm.
And again,
Mm-hmm.
it's an ugly truth, but that truth set me free. And that was part of my self-care, my self-healing too. That was extremely important to my life.
And you know what? In terms of the children, really, that could be a whole nother episode all on its own because I really don't understand, not giving children more responsibility. I'm a mother of three. Birthdays are coming up, so I'm just going to claim on into those 7, 16, and 24. And my 24-year-old, when I had her sister, when she was 8, I taught her how to use the washing machine. Because I'm like, nope, this other one is coming and you need to learn how to do for yourself. And I did the same thing when I had the last one. I transitioned more responsibilities to the middle child. And when my oldest left the home, I trained the middle one how to clean the kitchen. You live here. This is a team effort. I remember a few years back, though, I had a coworker who traveled for business like crazy, but was still doing her 16-year-old daughter's laundry. And I thought that was the craziest thing ever. And I'm not criticizing everybody who does that. For some people, that is their love. That's their love language. That's how they show love to people. And as long as you're still managing your self-care in the midst of that, I think that's great. But I've had other people I've known and women I've worked with who, will nag their family to death about everything their family's not doing, but they're not taking care of their own health. So what happens if you drop dead? Who's going to do all this stuff then? So
Right.
with these children, we really do have to give them a certain measure of responsibility. Is good for their growth and independence, and it frees us up to live our own lives. And that same friend that used to overdo for her child couldn't believe that my son at 4 years old would go to bed by himself. Like, because she used to battle with her kids. I put you in the bed, they're back out again. My children, no, don't come out of that room. I better not see your brown face after 9 o'clock. I tell them that all the
Yeah.
time.
And I think it's just a matter of realizing that it's okay and it doesn't make you less of a mom. And when I talk to, especially for single mothers, especially those single mothers whose father is very limited in their kids' life. It's a matter of trying to fill a void that no matter what, that void will never be filled, because
Yeah.
there's no amount of money or amount of compensation you can do to fill that void. I mean, giving them love and also giving them a little tough love is okay. And my kids, they don't like it, and it's okay, but as I told them, you won't appreciate it until you become an adult. And this is what for single mothers, it's extremely important to know that you cannot replace that with money, or
Right.
if I do all this, then I mean, I get where you coming from, but it really doesn't work. What works is you being able to sit down and have a talk with them, and allowing them to be vulnerable and express their thoughts and concerns to you. That's how you help. But
Mm-hmm.
you can't fill that void with saying, okay, I'm gonna put them in all these activities, I'm gonna buy all this stuff, and then you going broke, you stressing yourself out, you making it more harder for you, because you feel like doing this for your kid is more important than you. And then that's where it all goes a little south. And I had to do that too. I had to realize that I can't make up for that. I can only be the best mom I can be.
And I think that's what it is right there. You did that inner work on yourself, and I hope we're able to come back together and talk more about that, because that really is a whole nother topic in terms of doing the work post divorce to get yourself in the best place possible to receive love again, if that's your choice. And I would love to hear more from you on that. I went through a divorce in 2005. But it wasn't for me even really traumatic. I'm a strange bird, but of course I remarried him 3 years later. So maybe there probably something wrapped up in that. But I think that there's a lot of work that women don't often do between relationships, and that work is the self-care that you're talking about as well. So if you don't heal what was broken, even if the other person, I don't care if you married the worst man out there, if he was a cheater running the streets, if he was a crack addict, you played a part because you didn't come in here perfect. So that means that there's work for you to do after the fact to be restored in a place of healing, so that you don't bring your trash into somebody else's car.
Right. And you don't want to repeat the same thing. And so because I don't know if you know, but I am a divorce coach. That's my first thing. And when I talk to women, there are times when I hear where, I did everything, I sacrificed everything. That is a problem. You
Yeah.
shouldn't have to do that. And that does, and so we still have to know that you don't have to give up everything about you to make a relationship work. And I
Yes.
believe that, I mean, a healthy one. And so we have to be careful how we set our foundations. And so I had to really go back and examine that, because what I saw, that I kept repeating the same pattern. You know what I mean? And so you got to stop and, just look at the common denominator, and ask yourself, why am I repeating this same pattern only with someone different? Why do I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I got to give up everything and make myself so available? And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's that truth that you don't want to admit, but that's that truth that gets you to the other side because that's that dark side that we never want to face. But we have to allow ourselves to go through that process to get to the other side. And so I see it happen all the time. And again, self-care, all of that is a part of self-care. Self-care is not about just getting a facial and getting a massage. Those things are great, but to me those are treats. And self-care
Mm-hmm.
is not treating yourself. Self-care is a lifestyle. And you
Mm.
start by creating a habit, and you create a habit by repetition. And that's what you do daily, not what you do once a week. You do it every day.
Wow. Well, you know what? I was going to ask you for a nugget, but I think you just gave it to us. I want you to tell everybody how they can reach you, and how they can find you. I highly recommend that you guys follow Miss Tanya Speaks. Definitely. She has done her work, and I know that she could add a lot of value to your lives. So tell everybody how they can find you.
On Facebook, it's Miss Tanya Speaks, and that's the same on Instagram and YouTube. And then I have a community called Reinvent You, from breakup to breakthrough. And you can also email me at Tanya Carter at MissTanyaSpeaks.com.
That is amazing. And I so appreciate you joining me this evening. And if I could say anything in parting to everybody that I think is really in line with what we've been talking about is it would be do your work. Don't be afraid of what's under the hood. Some of us are carrying around pain from our childhood. We think that we've buried it, but we have not. It stinks. People can smell it. The older you get, I'm here to tell you, the more it smells. And it manifests in so many different ways in your life. It will manifest in your marriage or any relationship that you're in, your friendships, through how you parent your children. My hashtag on that would be ask me how I know, from me basically poisoning my entire household and coming out on the other side victorious, but having to, fix all that damage. Just do your work. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, because it will be painful to go through it, but there's so much joy on the other side that is just unbelievable. So I want to encourage everybody with that. My website is www.karaashburn.com, KHARAASHBURNE. You can find me on social media as well at Coach K's Healthy Living, or you can follow me at my personal page, Kara Ashburn. I would just love to hear from you guys. If you have any comments or anything you want to share, you can send me an email to Coach K at Kara Ashburn, KHARAASHBURNE.com. I would love to hear from you. Tanya, thank you so much. And I know we will be doing this again for a fact.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in for today's episode of Life and Other Indoor Sports. For more information on my coaching program or anything that has to do with plant-based living life to the fullest, losing weight by faith, and more, please visit karaashburn.com. That's KHARAASHBURNE.